Wife and I got into a car accident and I discovered that. Update 2. Hi everyone, welcome back to another Reddit cheating story. Before we start, please hit the subscribe button and click the notification bell so you won't miss another cheating story goes live. Not only am I not sure where to begin, I'm not even sure what to say when I do. I guess the first thing is to tell everyone I did manage to get a very good lawyer. Her firm in general is rated the highest at representing men in divorce cases in my area. Instead of passing my case off to someone else on the legal team, she took on my case as her own. Everyone at the firm has been kind and supportive. I can tell they don't just care about getting their retainer and payoff. Nadia, my lawyer, has done everything she can to help me with my well-being and sanity. After agreeing to take my case, we went over the usual forms I needed to fill out. I listed property and all bank account info as well as ballpark estimates of what Mari and I make income-wise. After explaining about the wreck and what I saw just before it happened, she asked if I'd had an STD panel. I explained that I had, and everything had come back clean. She then asked if I had documented the infidelity with pictures or video. I told her I hadn't been thinking rationally enough at the moment to do that. She phoned a Pi her firm uses and set up a meeting between him and I the next day. I live in an at-fault state. So, while I knew Mari was unfaithful, I needed actual evidence for the divorce to go my way. We set up one of her staff to be the go-between for me and Mari's dad as far as communication goes and to arrange drop-offs. I got her aide to go ahead and notify my soon-to-be ex-father-in-law that my ex could have the kids that upcoming weekend and following week. Nadia then asked if I had arranged therapy for me and my children. I explained I was due to have my first therapy appointment that week. But as the children had yet to be told anything, I was holding off on that. She told me as soon as I felt they were in need of any professional attention to let her know. She had several therapists she could recommend. She expressed what seemed to be sincere condolences I was having to go through all I have and will. I tend to dislike lawyers. But I do think I might have found one with an actual soul. She gave me a list of things to collect and do before our next meeting. Many of the instructions were identical to the advice users post here. So, when she told me to drop by the drugstore to get 2 DNA kits, I thought nothing of it. I knew it was standard protocol. When I got home with the kids that night, I did the cheek swabs for me and them. I sealed everything up and mailed the kits off after taking the kids to school the next morning. 2 days later was Friday and the go-between dropped the kids off with their grandfather for the weekend that morning. I went to work, and I was just coming back from lunch when I got an email notification from my personal account. I could see it was 2 emails from the lab, so I waited to get to my computer to view them. At my desk I opened the first email and clicked a link. The result said my son Michael is in fact my son. I opened the other email and clicked the link. I read what it said. I read what it said again. I couldn't really say anything, I just started shaking my head. I knew I had to get out of the office before breaking down. But I managed to do screenshots of both results and email them to myself as photo files. I went to my car and began bawling as the realization my daughter Carrie was in fact, not my daughter set in. I can't imagine having an arm cut off would hurt much more than losing a daughter. It honestly felt like my soul had been taken from me. I don't know any other way to describe it. I didn't know who to call. I just sat there crying and wishing like hell I could wake up from my nightmare. I downloaded the 2 files from my email account and texted the pics to my lawyer. Within 20 seconds Nadia called asking where I was. Work was all I could manage to say. She told me to stay there and someone from the firm would be there in a few minutes. I ended the call and opened the door. I began to vomit uncontrollably until I was dry heaving. By the time I managed to stop puking and feeling dizzy, one of the paralegals arrived to pick me up. She took me to the firm and as soon as Nadia finished with a client, they ushered me into her office. The first thing she told me was that sometimes the tests come back wrong. She said she understood I was upset and had every right to be. But she urged me we needed to test Carrie and me again in a local lab to ensure nothing gets contaminated. I couldn't believe what was happening. Even after catching Mari cheating, I just assumed the DNA test on the kids was a formality. I would have never thought my wife would ever be unfaithful. But imagining she was capable of having some other man's baby, if true, who in the hell did I marry? I couldn't even confront Mari if I wanted to. I didn't have concrete proof. Yet I couldn't imagine if the results confirmed what we highly suspected, how she and I would ever have that conversation. One of the ladies in the office at the firm had a blood pressure cup and checked mine to make sure it wasn't at dangerous levels. It was elevated and I did feel like I was close to a panic attack. Yet I was numb and in shock at the same time. I wondered what was next. I struggled to grasp that my little girl might have never been my little girl. At that moment I was so glad the kids were staying with their mom. I started wondering if both test results could be wrong and Carrie was my daughter and Michael wasn't my son. I knew I couldn't wait 2 days to know the truth. So, the go-between set up a time she could pick Carrie up the next day for a few hours and take her back to Mari's parents. We did the test in a sterile environment and by trained medical staff. There was no mix-up. I am not Carrie's father. It still took a day to get results and she was back with her mom by the time I got them. But I cried even harder the second time and I'm so glad Carrie wasn't there to witness it. I sent the results to my lawyer, and she called to check on me. She urged me to seek out family and not go through things alone. I got into my car and drove to my dad's crying the whole way. When I got there and saw my mom, she knew something was wrong, but couldn't get it out of me. Finally, I just managed to utter, "Carrie is not my daughter." Mom asked me, "What?" But she knew she heard correctly, and I was incapable of repeating it. After about 30 seconds of silence other than me weeping uncontrollably, she stood and got her cell phone. She called my dad. She told him to hurry home, but please be very careful, that I had bad news. I could tell my dad wanted at least a hint at what could be so bad. She just urged him to be safe and get home as soon as he could. He arrived in about 20 minutes, and we all just had a long cry for hours. I'd console my dad. He'd console my mom. They'd console me. But we were all inconsolable. They of course asked me about Michael, and I assured them he was mine. They both expressed relief and then felt badly for being relieved to only be losing one grandchild. They asked me what I was going to do. I told them I didn't know. The only thing that was certain for me at that moment was that Carrie would never want for anything she needed and most things she wanted. I didn't even care about potential required child support at that moment, she was going to be taken care of. As horrible as I was feeling for myself, I felt even worse for Carrie, being totally innocent. Did I want custody of her? Could I get custody of Carrie even if I wanted it? I began to wonder if Mari knew or suspected. I suddenly wanted some damn answers. I met with Nadia after work Monday, and she told me she'd met with the private detective hired to follow Mari. Due to the wreck, she hadn't been out of the house to cheat anymore. So, I wasn't surprised he didn't have recent evidence. But one of the things Nadia had me bring was Mari's old cell phone from out of a drawer at home. He was able to get in and access nearly every app as if he were on her destroyed phone. He found nudes sent and received to and from various guys. Tons of messages and sexting with enough admission of guilt in them to sway any judge. I was asked if I wanted to see any of the pictures or read the texts. I declined. But Nadia and I did need to plan how I was going to confront Mari about Carrie. She thought it best to do it in her office if Mari could be talked into it. She called Mari's mom's cell in front of me. I heard Mari's voice for the first time since I left the hospital. Nadia got straight to the point and told her she needed to meet with me to explain a few things. My ex declared she'd been waiting and wanting to talk. She was asked if her lawyer could be contacted. Mari said she didn't have one but said she was willing to come the next afternoon to talk. There are more to come. Find out the update of this story, check our channel or the description. Thank you for watching and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell for any future cheating stories.